Happy New Year and welcome to season 15 of the Anxiety Slayer podcast. Ananga and I come together weekly to share a powerful collection of conversations, techniques, and resources to help you find relief from anxiety. Before we begin, we'd like to thank our new patrons, Mary, Francine, and Elizabeth, for supporting our work together. If you want to become an Anxiety Slayer patron and get access to over 200 anxiety relief offerings, visit patreon.com/anxietyslayer. Welcome back, Ananga. Happy New Year.
Hey, Shan. Happy New Year to you and to all our listeners.
This week, we're going to be talking about how having a regular anxiety calming practice can help you feel more calm and present as we step into the new year.
Yeah. Last week, we were sharing about how at this time of year, we're all inclined to feel that we should make resolutions and set some goals, things we want to achieve. And of course, social media, the second the calendar flips over to the first day of the new year, social media is full of adverts for diets and gym memberships. And we've often shared on the podcast that this is a very challenging time to make resolutions because in the Northern Hemisphere, we have so little light, sunlight, daylight, energy, and we're just not really in a place to be making big strides forward or thinking that we can make sudden and lasting change. And I think this year, what I'm hearing from my friends is that people are even more tired of the dark and exhausted. I'm hearing a lot of people saying they're feeling particularly fatigued this year in this midwinter energy.
Yeah, I'm hearing the same. And I've never quite understood why January is the beginning of a new year. I always think it should be March.
Yeah.
I always think it should be more in alignment with spring. And if you think about Ayurveda and all of the ways that we've shared and talked about Ayurveda and honoring your body and honoring the seasons, it just seems like having the expectation of yourself to jump through flaming circus hoops in order to make changes right now is kind of silly and sets you up for failure, not for new beginnings and growth. So that's why I think setting intentions and leaning in makes sense. What are the things that I know that I'd like to see happen in the future? And then how can I look after myself and take steps in that direction, leaning into it, but without the have to do the gym membership, have to completely change the way I eat, have to completely reorganize my entire life and do so right now because it's January 1st.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. I also feel like spring is the time. If you just look at nature now, there's not a lot happening. And in spring, we start to see all these beautiful signs of life. There's so much energy coming.
Right.
You know, new bulbs appearing. You see the growth in nature all around. The bird song changes. It feels like everything's waking up and getting going. And if we can be in step with that, that's a beautiful time to really reappraise where we want to be. And of course, there's always the opportunity to do that. To do it once a year is quite disastrous, I think, and a lot of pressure.
Right.
Yeah, that you just think with the flip of a calendar, you know, that's it. You've been feeling in the dark and lethargic for weeks, and then you think the calendar's flipped and you're going to flip into a new state. And that's why we referenced in our last episode how resolutions can increase anxiety because it can add to our sort of a personal sense of strain and dissatisfaction, or we might even be being hard on ourselves, which never helps. One thing I've noticed at this time of year I'm drawn to is being more creative. I like to get out some watercolor paints or coloring pencils, and I was talking to my daughter about it, and what I realized was I feel that nature can become a little bit monotone at this time of year. Certainly in the UK at the moment, we've had a couple of nice sunny days, but it's pretty relentlessly grey. And I find that if I put on a beautiful, inspiring class or listen to an audiobook and I get out some paints or coloring pencils, I'm seeing color.
Hmm.
That's what I realized when I explored it. It's like, why is it at this time of year? It's usually January, February. I feel like this desire to be more creative. And I think that's what it is.
Well, and it's a healthy desire too, Ananga.
Yeah.
Over the last few weeks, there was an event called Women Unleashed by a friend of mine. I was actually a part of this offering many years ago. And each day for, I think, 2 or 3 weeks, there was an opportunity to get involved in these little sessions. They were either art sessions, body sessions, or spiritual sessions, and you could pick whatever you wanted. And I set the intention that I would do at least one of each. And I ended up doing, I think, more than 10.
Mm.
And I just carved out that time during the holiday break to take that space, and whether it was a guided meditation or whether I did this really cool soul collage card thing and did some writing and coloring and painting. And oh my goodness, it was such a gift. It was one of the best parts of my winter break for sure to bring that in. So I agree with you completely. And if you think about what happens in the winter to all of the plants and to all of everything around us is internal. Everything's happening under the ground for all of our gardens right now. Everything's building up and nurturing itself, and you just can't see it.
Yeah.
And we should be doing that for ourselves as well,
Absolutely.
for our internal life.
It feels withdrawn. Nature feels withdrawn. One thing I really love that I learned quite recently is that the buds for next year's leaves are already on the trees. And I think that's a fantastic meditation on growth and potential, and that everything we need is there. It's all there, but they're not springing forth into leaf right now. They will do when the time's right. And I think there is this need in us to really simplify our eating, rest our digestion, rest our mind and body, but also to do whatever we can to find some light. For me, that's really important at this time of year. And it will come for me through reading, through good conversations, to bring some light and inspiration to my mind, some nourishment to my mind. I really feel the need for that. And when there's a gap in it, I'm very aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
So those things we need, that mental nutrition, and to trust that the light comes around again and we get a bit more energy. So, yeah, we were talking about intentions and leaning in. And I think that's a wonderful thing to do at this time of year. And it reminds me of a quote from a book I had. It's called The Book of Runes by Ralph Blum. And he had a passage in there that said, when fishermen can't fish, they mend their nets.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still part of being a fisherman.
Yeah, I love that.
And I was talking to a friend about it and how it's helpful for us to notice the conditions around us and to notice that there are times when we can't be as active or as achieving as we might like, but there's the backup stuff we can do, the preparatory stuff. Just like if you want daffodils, you plant bulbs a long time before they bloom.
Mm-hmm. And then you trust that they're going to bloom.
And you trust. Yeah.
Yeah. When you think about the things that we try to force that don't work out or that are not in our best interest, which makes me think of stories of people like trying to help a butterfly free itself from its cocoon. The butterfly doesn't have a good chance to survive if you do that. You need to leave them alone and let them do their thing. Or folks that have taken the sea turtles and tried to move them on their own. Part of the reason why they have to crawl across the sand to get to the sea is to build up strength.
Right.
And so if you just think about, again, just two more stories in nature, whether it be trees or butterflies or turtles, everything in its own time.
Yeah. And I've heard you say trust a couple of times. And I think it's also nurturing trust
Mm-hmm.
is really important. And for me, that's a big part of staying in the light in my mind. if I feel a bit low or flat at this time of year, that's what I'll say to myself. And I'm going to stay in the light at this time of year. That's what I'll say to myself. And I'm going to stay in the light. You can't afford to go down, let the dark come in. So to know how we stay in the light, and it is trust.
We have these little LED lights in the windows. We put them up late November and they stay through the spring. And they look like candles in the windows of our home. And I'm noticing already that they're starting to come on before it's dark. And every year when they start to come on before it's dark, I get excited about what's to come because the light's already shifting, it's already changing. And there's just something about when that happens. It's like, oh, yeah. It's not that I don't know that it's going to happen, but this is proof that we're already in the process. And eventually I'll have to recalibrate them so that they go on later.
That's cool. Yeah, nice to notice those little changes, the shifts that we are pointing towards the light. So yeah, really helpful at this time of year then to just start thinking about new directions, leaning in. There's an author I read a while ago who said every year she does her perfect day practice, where if there was no restraints, financial, physical, anything, what would you do? What would your perfect day look like? And she sits and she writes it out. And then she sees, how does it compare to her life now? And I sat and did that the other day. I just did it in my head. I chose not to spend the time to do it on paper, but I did it in my head in detail, and it was a really nice exercise, and it made me realize that there's not such a gap as I might have thought in my perfect day. Even though I'm in a body that's got some pain and some chronic health issues and some other challenges, I realized that I was pointing what I felt was the right way, and that there was much in my life to be very, very grateful for, and that there were areas where I could make some gentle adjustments. I like to think of each day as an investment where, you can go to bed at night and think, what did I do today that I'm really glad I did? Glad I gave my energy and my attention to. And I think this is a nice time of year to review those things, but not big goals and big changes, just the sweet things of life, the aspirations of life, keeping those alive and nurturing them.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What do you want your 2025 story to be? Every January is an invitation for all of us to start fresh. And perhaps there's a part of your life that you're looking to change. And while Ananga and I aren't big on recommending resolutions, we do think setting positive intentions is very helpful. And working with a therapist can be super supportive as you navigate the days ahead. BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy affordable and convenient, and already serving 5 million people worldwide. Write your story with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/slayer today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/slayer. Before the break, we were talking about how light is helpful and creativity is helpful, getting some color back into our lives. And also, moving your body is helpful. Moving your body is incredibly important during this time, even though you might want to be curled up with a blanket and a cup of tea and not want to move much. You might want to just stay in that snuggly space. But actually, winter means we need to walk more than ever. We need to move, and we need the light and the fresh air to keep our spirits up.
Yeah, the mind can really suffer when we don't move. I have a chair here that I spend a lot of time in, and I'm mindful that sometimes it's lovely to relax in that chair and read and listen to inspiring things, and sometimes it's time to get out of the chair and move. And there's a certain kind of subtle tip over where if I'm there too long, I get too stiff physically and my mind becomes too aware of the discomforts in my body. So even if I just get up and pace up and down or do a little stretching or Qigong. I have to have those times during my day where I regularly do those things. And I've noticed the impact on my mind when I'm remembering.
Hmm.
It's very important that we don't get too kind of stuck and sedentary, and it definitely affects the mind to have that lack of movement. It's not an easy time of year to be out and about, but we can figure something out, start where we can, somewhere that's accessible, somewhere we can get to quickly and easily if need be, or just march out the door and start putting one foot in front of the other. And it's something it's helpful to commit to.
My practice right now, because of the snow and ice on the ground, I get on my treadmill.
Mm,
It's not as exciting or inviting as walking through the neighborhood or walking along the beach, but my body is still grateful for moving.
yeah, treadmills are a great option. Some qigong, some yoga, put some music on and dance. Whatever it takes is really important. We just need something we can do regularly every day to support us. And another thing that's really important that we often overlook is conscious relaxation,
Mm.
where we actually set aside a few minutes, even if it's 5, 10, 15 minutes, it doesn't have to be half an hour, but where we set aside a period of time once or twice a day to breathe or follow a guided relaxation or follow a routine that we've set for ourselves, an exercise routine, a stretching routine. I know somebody that does really well with Pilates, yoga. Again, we often talk about Qigong, but there's something very different and super beneficial about choosing to do something relaxing. It's not the same as sitting reading, or certainly not the same as scrolling. It's a different level of relaxation when we say, okay, I'm going to close my eyes and do this for a few minutes.
And even 10 minutes makes a difference. 5 minutes makes a difference.
Huge difference.
I just finished a 3-week guided meditation program, and it was so helpful. And it was 9 to maybe 15 minutes each day, moving through all of the different guided practices that we've covered here several times, but doing so with this teacher, David G., who is this funny, positive, kind man who took us through learning to just watch our breath would be one. Another would be alternate nostril breathing. Another would be the long exhale. Again, different breathing practices that we've shared. But I got to the end of the 21 days with him and with all the folks who were in the program, and I could absolutely tell that I was more calm and relaxed for sure.
Mm.
I'm doing it again because I have 10 minutes. I can do this. And while so much of it was information that I already knew, some of it was practices that I had forgotten about, or practices that, like, oh yeah, that's right. I want to be in that space of just being more peaceful and more calm and relaxed, and choosing that conscious relaxation made such a difference.
Yeah, that's what I found. It's that choice that, okay, I'm going to set aside this time with the intention of being as relaxed as I possibly can,
Hmm.
and finding, what that looks like. I've recommitted to alternate nostril breathing. I was listening to a teacher of Vedic psychology, and he said, even if you do it for 5 minutes morning and evening, it will help you calm your mind. And I know we've recommended that so many times, but it was just hearing it reaffirmed from somebody else, somebody that I respect, helped me reapply myself to that. And it's good, just a few minutes. It really does make a difference. Again, I think it's that nudge, that reminder to do something that's helpful. And I love the idea of a 21-day program where you've got some kind of flow and accountability. And I love that you're doing it again. That's really cool.
Well, I realized that it serves me well when I could notice. I mean, I knew it served me well, but to be at the end of the 21 days and just notice how much more calm and relaxed I was, and not holding on so tightly and not being so firmly planted in my pitta mind is really nice.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, when we stop and notice how we might feel that we're just going about our day doing things in a fairly relaxed state, but often we're not. There's some tension in our jaw or our shoulders or our hands somewhere. And when you start a regular practice, you start to notice that and the benefit spills over that you notice during the day and you kind of loosen up and check in with yourself more. So yeah, really helpful to recommit. It's not really a resolution, but to recommit to calming practices and taking care of our mind and body. And anxiety is such a sticky and tricky state because the mind will tell us there's nothing we can do to help ourselves, and there's so much we can do. I think this is a really important time of year to just look over what can I do to practice some more positive intention, affirmations, relaxations, clean, simple, healthy eating, and spending time with people that help us feel supported and encouraged and even inspired. Really important.
And to take these small steps one at a time, these daily acts, these daily choices, one day at a time. I like to make lists and checks and see how I'm doing, and and to be able to cross something off my list or what have you. And now when I'm doing it, I'll say something like, "Oh, I love myself," or "Look at how I looked after myself," versus, uh, "Did you get on the treadmill? Did you walk a mile? Did you blah blah blah? What did you eat today?" Like, "Oh, I made this wonderful dish with 3 different vegetables. That was really sweet." And it almost sounds childlike, Ananga, but the more I speak to myself that way, the happier I am to be like, "Look at what you're doing."
It's gentle and we can feel so overwhelmed. And I know for myself also there's that pitter part of me that likes a list and an achievement. And I've over the years spoken about habit tracker apps and different things that I'll use if I'm in a slump to get going again. But then I'll trash them all and I'll go back to doing things more gently, which is what I'm doing at the moment. It's like, okay, I've pulled up, I've got some things back in place that I felt I needed a nudge with. But now I'm being very gentle with myself. And often I'll check in. I can get very tired in the mornings around 8, 9 a.m. I get up early to read and meditate and then, do the daily things that need doing. And I can find that after eating my breakfast, I can slump. My mood and energy can slump a little bit. So at that time, I check in with myself. I know it's due to my physical conditions and they can do that.
Yeah.
So my practice is to just ask, what have you done so far today that was good? What have you done to help yourself? And it really helps. And then I'll have a couple of what are you grateful for? Today I received a couple of lovely messages from friends on WhatsApp that really made me smile. So that was on the gratitude list. I had a message from my cousin, which was nice to hear from her. So I'll just check in and kind of reset my sails.
You're so good at that.
Doesn't feel good if I don't. It's something I've really had to learn to do because I know my body and my mind can hit this kind of slump. And I can't do it with tension or hypervigilance. It's got to be done with kindness. And that I'm still refining, that I'm still working on. It's a work in progress, but it's been helpful. So I'm sharing.
Well, anxiety is a big issue, and yet we know it's best handled with little steps.
Hmm.
Just continue to keep your mind on what you can do rather than what you can't, or letting thoughts of uncertainty oppress you, and just take action one step at a time. You can slay your anxiety one step at a time. You can change your life in the new year by setting intentions and working at them, by valuing the little steps. Thanks for listening. For support with starting a daily calming practice, you can join our popular online course, Small Steps to Big Change, which is available on our Patreon, along with over 200 guided relaxations, tapping sessions, and classes to help you slay your anxiety. We'll see you next week.